Hello there everybody, welcome back to my channel. I do hope you're having a good day and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be taking a look at my all-time favourite aircraft from Gemini Jets, this beautiful pair of British Aerospace BAE 146s. Okay then, so this is sure going to be an interesting one. Now, you guys will only have ever seen one of these models before. You'll have seen the Flybe BAE 146 in the last couple of WSI airport updates, and having picked up another one of them in this beautiful Air UK livery, I can confidently now say that this model is my absolute favourite of all of the molds that I've experienced from Gemini Jets. Beyond, narrow bodies, wide bodies, all of it, this one is my favourite. Now, partly this obviously has to do with the design of the aircraft itself. Personally, this aircraft really appeals to me. I've never been on one in real life, but I think it's just an absolutely brilliantly good looking aircraft, and it was incredibly versatile in its day in operation. And I think they've also done an amazing job of this in terms of a model as well. I mean, as we're about to discover, Gemini Jets absolutely knocked it out of the park with this one. Now, you may notice that these are slightly older style boxes. Now, that is because there are currently no UK BAE 146 liveries sort of on the market from Gemini Jets, and both of these models are in fact from way back in 2007, just a year after I was born, so these aren't young models anymore. But I just think that this is an absolute zenith in the age of model aircraft, and I think Gemini Jets really had a good shot at the whip with this aircraft because it is just absolutely incredible. Hence why I've now picked up two of them. So in today's video we're going to be taking a look why. I'll be showing you all of the details and outlining the reasons that I think this is Gemini Jet's best model. So then, before we get onto the models, I thought I'd just show you guys very quickly the boxes. Now, these are both similar, having both been made in the same year, back in 2007, as I said in the previous clip. And they're both pretty identical. The CGI image on the Air UK one is ever so slightly bigger. And of course, we have the hallmarks of a slightly more dated box with the white and red look inside tab and the information flap itself. Both of them, on both of the models, have the old style of information flap with the sort of aeronautical charts as the background to the information, as opposed to the modern boxes, which it's much more sleek, and I believe there's just a single colour background. Those are sort of small things, but the main thing that I have to talk about in terms of the boxes, which I did actually mention in the last video in the moving house vlog, is the quite disastrous state of the glue that was used at the time. Now, I'm not sure if you guys have experienced this as well. If you do have any 146s from Gemini Jets from this era, then please do leave your thoughts about this down in the comments below. I'd be really interested to see if you guys have had the same problem. But I bought these two models from completely separate places at completely separate times, and both of them have real problems with their boxes. Now, as you can see, the main problem here is that sort of the glue that runs along the top has, I suppose it's sort of gone off, I'd imagine. And yeah, it sort of makes the box kind of useless. I mean, I never use the side flaps because generally you just sort of pull the thing out and then the tray comes out. Now, yeah, obviously these are very old boxes. I'm not really gonna sort of dish Gemini Jets for this because at the end of the day, this is sort of a 16, 17-year-old model now. And there isn't really anything that they can do about this anymore, and I suspect it's sort of aging with the glue. But it is a little bit of a shame, just, purely for me as the owner, because I have to be really careful about how I stack these boxes. I'll just show you guys with the Flybe one as well. Yeah, it's not a big thing, I suppose, but it does mean that perhaps the models aren't as protected as possibly they could be. So, without further ado, I'm going to reset the camera, bring the models in, and let's have a bit of a chat about them. Alright then, so on to these models. Now, I think I'm going to show you guys around it with the Flybe example, just because there's a little bit less livery to I suppose, hide the details of the model. So I'm going to move the Air UK one out of the way for a minute, and let's take a bit of a tour of this beautiful BAE 146 by Gemini Jets. So starting at the front, we have the cockpit. That looks all good, and actually the landing gear piece at the front of that nose set of landing gear, that looks really, really good and fine scale. If you guys are sort of slightly longer viewers of the channel, you'll remember I reviewed the Saab 340 last year, and one of my main sort of problems with that model is the size of the landing gear. Now at the front it looked really big and really bulky, but at the time I was like, oh, you know, fair enough, actually it could be perfectly possible that Gemini Jets don't have a way of making the landing gear any smaller than that. But it seems that I was wrong, and these models are living examples of that, because just take a look at the scale of that landing gear next to my thumb. It is absolutely tiny, and I think that's really good on one hand because it means that we can get really fine scale components, but also on the other hand that does mean that the Saab is sort of unnecessarily out of proportion, because had it had that smaller nose landing gear I think it would have looked much better. So yeah, that is really good, and that is a really quality feature. Now those wheels don't roll. To be honest, on a model this size I don't really think that's too much of a problem. Yeah, I think that would probably do more damage than it would good, having sort of components that small rolling, because you'd struggle to get the axle free, and it would probably just be more hassle than it's worth, because you aren't really supposed to roll these models around anyway. But anyway, moving a little bit further along the model, we have the L1 boarding door, and on this Flybe example, of course, we have the Flybe logo, and then after that we are straight into the wings. And so of course this BAE 146 is a 4-engined narrowbody, which is very uncommon, but one of the sort of selling points of this aircraft in its heyday was how much more quiet it was, because having 4 small engines, for some reason to do with physics and that sort of thing, generally makes the aircraft quieter than it would do with sort of 2 larger engines. And I have to say I really love that design. So we have the engine 1 and engine 2, and they are sort of staggered. So the engine 1 is a little bit further back on the wing because it's further along, and the same on the other side, and I'm really glad to see that Gemini Jets have successfully sort of managed to replicate that with that quite distinct staggering. In terms of the wing detail itself then, we have got the sort of the leading edge of the wings and the ailerons picked out in silver. That's just really nice. It's a really quality thing for them to do, and it sort of does just highlight those details as they would be on the real aircraft. Another detail that's jumping out at me at the moment, just sort of between the wings and the fuselage, are the landing lights. I do believe they are landing lights because there's one on each side and it would appear as though they're pointing forwards. That looks really good. Yeah, nice to see those, and we've got that sort of small little red dot for the beacon light on top there as well. Moving a little bit further back to the edge of the wing, we have the flap track fairings. Those are really small moulded pieces, and they actually look quite sharp, but they're really nicely done. There isn't too much paint sticking to them, which is good. On some of the small pieces from some manufacturers, you can see them sort of start to become a little bit gloopy if there's a little bit too much paint that's been applied there. But no, that looks really good. In terms of the windows going all the way along the length of the cabin, they're all really good and really straight. It is actually quite difficult to see how straight they are, obviously, because we've sort of got the engines in the way. Normally you'd have the wings below and then all of that sort of thing, but actually it's sort of quite an enclosed space sort of in behind there, because we've got the landing gear below, which I'll get to talking about in a minute. A little bit further back from that, we have got the registration number, which is Golf Juliet Echo Alpha Kilo. Yeah, a little bit further back from that then, we have got the L2 boarding door. Yeah, that's also really good. I can just see that with the sort of Flybe wording going up the back there. This is of course a T-tail aircraft as well, like the ATRs and the Dash 8s. Another thing of the design that I really like, and of course Gemini Jets have also picked out the same silver on the sort of rear edge of the elevators, which is also another really good quality feature. Another detail that you guys might not have noticed is underneath here, just underneath the Y, we have got, I believe, the tail strike sort of protection box, which is, I'm not entirely sure what it's made of in real life, but I believe it serves the purpose that if the pilots flare too much on takeoff or landing, it's not going to destroy the actual sort of, you know, the actual fuselage. It has sort of like a buffer to land on the runway to scrape off before it sort of scrapes off anything actually too important. So yeah, that's a nice detail. Moving on very quickly to the landing gear then, and the underside of the model, that also looks really good. We have got the Gemini Jets logo in very small writing there, and the rear set of landing gear. I'm not entirely sure if this rear set is entirely to scale. I'd say that probably it is. I'm just not particularly familiar with seeing this aircraft from this angle. but it does sort of seem as though the wheels come out quite wide, but of course they will pivot sort of to the centre of the fuselage. So yeah, I think that looks okay. It certainly doesn't look over proportioned by too much, so that's all good. Another pleasant surprise we have is we've actually got a hole for the stand. Now this wasn't something that I was expecting, because we didn't get them on the Dash 8 or on the ATR, but of course it did occur to me that inside this aircraft is actually a 3 abreast seating layout, whereas some of the other sort of regional aircraft, they're only 4 abreast, so 2 either side of the aisle. So yeah, that's probably the reason for that, because the fuselage is wider. Gemini Jets could afford to put a hole in there without risking sort of having the stand hole coming up the sides of the model because it was too narrow. So yeah, that is an overview of this aircraft. I'm now going to bring the Air UK one back in. Now, of course, out of the 2 for me to operate at Will Scarlett International, the Air UK is probably the less realistic one, but I just think it looks absolutely beautiful. I mean, I'm so happy with this model. I'm going to get to the pricings that I paid for them later. Obviously, these being second-hand models, it's a bit more subjective than usual because, these are both quite rare models. And so, it's sort of a little bit more difficult to price them because it sort of depends just how much people are willing to pay for them. But yeah, so let's actually have a little bit of a look at this UK livery specifically. Now, it's fairly similar in terms of the basic details, but on the front by the nose, we actually have the black radome up front. I'm not entirely sure whether that serves a technical purpose or whether it was just an aspect of the livery, but I think it does definitely elevate the look of the aircraft and just add a little bit more visual interest. Another thing I can see that wasn't on the Flybe livery is we have the very, very small Royal Mail crest underneath the cockpit windows there. That's a really nice detail, and I can't really read it with the naked eye, but I can sort of see the outline of it and I can tell what it says. Now, the Air UK livery is sort of a little bit more complex in terms of the fuselage. So we've got these 3 different shades of blue that sort of run all the way along the length of the fuselage and sort of really obscure the windows. I can sort of just about see the grey of the windows. I'm sure you guys might be able to see them better with the close-ups that I'm putting on the screen. But for me, I can just about make out the windows, although they are inset back on that really dark blue. Yeah, so those lines sort of run all the way underneath the wings and to the back of the model. There we have also got the registration number there. This one is Golf Charlie November Mike Foxtrot. That all looks good, and then we've got the L2 door there as well, and I can see the words Air UK on that rear door. And then the tail, this is a really, really nice touch, and it's sort of, I suppose, the sort of finishing touch to the Air UK livery. We've got half a Union Jack flying sort of towards the back of the tail there, and I suppose that does look, it does look good because it works with the lines of the aircraft. Obviously you've got the sort of flag sweeping back and you've got the tail sweeping back towards the elevators there. So yeah, another sort of fairly simple livery on the BAE 146, but I think this aircraft can just pull off any livery. It really does look really good. Under here you can sort of see a little bit better some of the details, so the cargo holds and that sort of thing, because obviously the Flybe has a blue bottom, so we can just see some of these details a little bit better on the Air UK example. But yeah, that is it. I mean, this is an absolutely stunning mould from Gemini Jets. I'm certainly going to keep my eye out for these in the future. Now let's talk a little bit about price before I wrap this video up, because obviously, as I said, it's a little bit more subjective. These are rare models and they're very much collector's pieces, and I've been working quite hard to try and get my hands on these 2, and it's sort of been a search over a couple of years and some quite lucky finding on eBay. So the first one, the Flybe one, is the first one that I picked up, and I bought this from Wings 400. I'm going to leave his details down in the link in the description below because he's really good. I've used him a number of times now, sort of through Instagram. He hooked me up with the Flybe Embraer 170 and the Dash 8 as well. And he also found one of these for me, so I'm really, really grateful to him for that. I'll leave all of his details down in the description below. Now the Air UK one, that is a little bit different. I found this one on eBay, and I only actually paid £40 plus shipping for this. For reference, for the Flybe one, I paid £70 plus shipping, which I think is it's quite a fair price actually for a model this rare. I'm not entirely sure how much they made. I couldn't find out on the Gemini Jets sort of database, but I do know that they're very rare, so I think 70 plus shipping is probably about right for a model this rare. Now I think I actually got a really good bargain with this Air UK one, because as I said, I only paid £40 plus shipping, which is a really excellent rate, because I'm pretty sure that this Air UK one is, if anything, a little bit more rare than the Flybe one. Do let me know if you know any different. It's quite difficult to find out actually how many units of each one were made. If you guys do have any sort of industry inside tools there that you do use to find that out, then please do let me know, because I would love to know and research into this a little bit further. But these ones really are like hen's teeth, and I know that they didn't make many liveries of this 146 in the regional. I believe there was also an Aer Lingus one as well, obviously in the old green colours, because I believe once the new Aer Lingus colours came out, the 146s had already been retired. I might look at picking that one up, although I do already have the ATR and the A320 for Aer Lingus, so it probably isn't going to be an imminent priority. But yeah, that is going to be it for today's video. I'm so happy with these two models, and I really do hope that you found it useful as well. And if you do get the opportunity to pick one of these up for, you know, a vaguely fair price, I would absolutely encourage you to do so. It is a really beautiful mold from Gemini Jets, and I'm super happy to have these in my collection. I would say that probably any price from sort of maybe £80 downwards is about fair. You know, the quality of this model is incredible, and of course they're also very rare, which does boost the price quite heavily. Obviously you wouldn't really want to be paying for that for a 1:400 scale model normally, but due to the scarcity of these models, I think that's more than fair enough. So that is going to be it for today. I really do hope that you enjoyed this video. If you would just like a little bit of a quick update, I mean, we've lived at the new house about a week now, and obviously this is the week after I moved, after I uploaded my moving house vlog. So yeah, some things have changed. I'm filming from this angle. Obviously the sort of apron bit of the airport is kind of empty at the moment because I've been filming this unboxing with it, but we've got some more lights sort of around. I'm using the ring light, and I've also managed to get my hands on a couple other of these sort of IKEA desk lamps that is just sort of adding some more key lights onto the airports. And yeah, it's sort of, I also actually managed to add one of the second strips going across. Now this big lamp, although it's absolutely brilliant, the light is way too bright, and actually, having filmed last week's video, I actually found myself getting rather bad headaches because of simply the brightness of the bulb. So I'm not actually using it very much at the moment, and all of the light is coming from daylight and from sort of the other lights around the airport at the moment. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the future is going to bring, and obviously I'm still sort of finalizing my process, I suppose, for, you know, for filming these and getting used to the setup. But that is sort of the latest house news, and hopefully it's going to be settling down in the next couple of weeks. So without any further ado, I'm going to say thank you very much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.